Okay. So that's also a good thing. I didn't think about that one, Florida girl. Moses was in a basket as a baby, so he was sent down the stream to be saved from death. So there was protection in the basket for Moses. There was protection in the basket for Saul. But there's another story, Bible story that I'm thinking about. They were in the desert. They marched around the walls. This should give you like more of a clue. Dinks, do you want to chime in? Do you know what story I'm referring to? The Battle of Jericho. We're there almost. You're almost there. It's very, very, like, it is a part of that story. Maybe I need to give you guys homework. No, I'm kidding. So within the story of Jericho, the spies go into the city, and they were let down. Yes, there you go. They were let down the wall at night by Rahab the harlot, and so that they escaped before they got caught. So very interesting that it was the same. It's very similar that God rescued Saul's life from the Jewish leaders in the same way that he rescued Caleb and Joshua from the wall, from Jericho. Okay, so moving forward. Yes, I know you're like, how does this connect to Ephesians? Just keep tracking with me here. The disciples saved him by letting him down through the wall in a basket. And why are you here to distract me? Newton just jumped on the table and there's no room for him to walk. So like, he's like, what is happening? Okay. He sat with those disciples and learned. So, and then they let him down through the wall. This is where we see Barnabas come in. He comes on the scene and he's not afraid. This man must have had the gift of faith. He must have had courage. He must have been one of those Joshua 1:9 people, be strong and of good courage type disciples of Jesus, because he was not afraid of Saul's history. He was not afraid. He probably had heard that Saul had this major conversion. Like, who wouldn't have in that church, in those circle, like gone and spread all of that news? Like, that was major info. We would be like texting people. We would be telling everybody we knew, hey, did you know about this or whatever? So Barnabas likely knew the story and he was not afraid, and he took him straight to the apostles. So Barnabas and Saul go to the apostles, the 12, and then they have like this little powwow type thing. And so then we see that Paul is then compelled. He says, I am compelled to share the gospel of Christ. And we see that he says this in 1 Corinthians 9:16. Okay, in Acts 13 verse 9, we see the name change. Okay, let's get into this. Why Saul? Why Paul? All right, so Saul was a Jewish man. His name was Saul. He was also Roman, and his Roman name was Paul. I don't know why they made them rhyme. They just did. But he went by both names. And so we're seeing that in the beginning of his ministry, that he is still called Saul in the Bible, and then it shifts like there's a stark contrast. So starting in Acts 13:9, it shifts from saying his name was Saul to Paul. Okay, so he had a dual name, Saul Paul, or Paul Saul, Saul Paul. So again, Saul being Jewish and Paul being Roman. So let's see what they mean. Saul means asked for, prayed for, borrowed. He would have been from the Jewish background, in the Jewish background, to have carried a name of Saul would have come from the tribe. So if you are a part of a tribe, you would have like a certain set of names. And so if you were named Saul, then people would know that you were from the tribe of Benjamin. And so then we know that he's from the tribe of Benjamin. And then Paul means something different. Paul means little, small, humble. It was Roman, showing his dual citizenship. He really did redeem his predecessor's name, because Saul was an asked for, a prayed for, and a borrowed king. And then Saul comes on the scene, and he really does redeem the name after he starts his ministry. Did he rename himself, or did God rename him? What's the difference? He had both names. These are the names that he was born with. So he went by Paul with Roman people, like Romans, and he went by Saul for his Jewishness. You're just gonna have to live with my weird colloquialisms. So he didn't rename himself. It's just that we see the shift of him. Hey, don't jump ahead of me. We see the shift of him going from being a Jew and hating Christians to being more Roman and being a Gentile Christian. So there's just a shift. And so Acts 13, he begins his ministry to the Gentiles, specifically using the name allowed greater access and favor. So if you had like a dual name, and you were going to some other people group, but you had a name that people group recognized, and it actually meant something to them, or whatever, you would start going by that name. And so that's what we're seeing Saul shift to Paul. And in scripture, we see that, and it opens up doors for him that maybe his Jewish name Saul would not. Then they're more likely to say, oh yeah, Paul, come on in, versus, oh, that's Saul? Isn't that a Jewish name? Isn't he a Jew? So it wouldn't be as welcomed. So going by his Roman name at this point made sense. It gave him greater access and favor. And so we're a puppet family. So that brings us up to the story of Saul's conversion to Paul. So we're back to Ephesians chapter 1, verse 1. The first word is Paul. I know, like, you guys were like, I was not ready for like 20 minutes of digging into the name Paul, but here we are. And this is the fun that you get with me. Oh yeah, you were ready for it because you knew it was coming. Because I kind of, well, I didn't really talk about that too much with you. I didn't talk about that aspect. I talked about the next two words with you. So, okay, you ready for the next two words? I know some passages lend to get going deep with just one word, and some of them don't. Like, I mean, you'll see. Stick with me, you'll see. Yeah. Okay, next two words. We covered Paul, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1. We covered Paul. He was Saul, and then did I miss that? I didn't miss that. Okay. And then he becomes an apostle. Yes, the next two words are an apostle. We are not going into the an, okay? Like, an is proper for the next word starting with a vowel. Or, yes. I'm not an English professor or anything, but like, you can't say a apostle, just so you know that's incorrect. So if you type Paul a apostle, then I would be like, no, the word is and. Anyway, okay. Okay, so Paul an apostle. All right, do you guys know what an apostle is? I'm interested to see what you guys say an apostle is. My other camera is very dark. I'm trying to use this little light and it's getting in my view too, but I'm waiting for you guys to respond to what an apostle is. I'm a little brighter if I come closer, but I can't come closer to this one and not be all weird in this one. Like, okay, someone who is a witness to Jesus' resurrection. Yes. So, it's a clothing line. You are so weird. Why are you so weird? It is a witness. Okay, so here we go. You ready? The Greek word for apostle is apostolos. Apostolos. If you go to Blue Letter Bible and you type in, air apostle. Stop making weird jokes. Anyway, I was just ignoring it. So this is how it works. If you go to Blue Letter Bible and you go to Ephesians chapter 1, verse 1, and you go to the Interlinear Bible, you will see, you will click on it and you can go down to apostle and it tells you apostolos, and you can click on the little hear me thing. I know that TC does this in his live feeds and it will pronounce it for you. It'll say Strong's G number, apostolos. It just cracks me out because then I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, and so it literally means a delegate, messenger, or one sent forth with orders, specifically commissioned by Christ, not self-appointed. Thank you. Strong's G, whatever the number is. I didn't even write it down. I should write it down so that I can do that impersonation next time too. Apostolos. It always repeats it twice too, so that you get to hear it. But anyway, okay. So now that we know what apostle means, that he was also witness to Jesus. Okay, so we don't know, do we know? We don't know if Paul was Saul at the time was witness to the death of Christ, but we do know that he meets Christ on the road. So he knows who Jesus is. He has seen Jesus. And then he becomes blind. Okay, so back on that road, he had traveling companions and they didn't see anything, but they heard a voice. They didn't see it. So this is an interesting rabbit trail that I did not address back then. That's something to think on later. Okay, anyway, so Paul, an apostle, he knew his title was given by God. He was not self-appointed. In fact, he was the opposite. He was trying to murder those people who were calling themselves apostles and disciples and Christians. So he was given this title by God. And the reference for that would be Acts 19 through 17, like that whole event of his salvation, the completion of his conversion. So, Paul immediately states his title to give authority, to get them to pay attention to what he was about to tell them. Okay, so I'm going to say, I'm Teresa, the teacher. I don't know. Hold on. I'm Teresa, the Bible study leader. Okay, so that means you're going to be like, oh, I should probably listen to her over this person sitting next to me because they don't have a title, or whatever their title is not important to this moment. So, yeah, I mean, Butter, I think he probably would have, but we don't know. And then at the same time, we don't see him writing in all of Paul's letters. We don't see him writing himself as saying that he is the witness to the death of Christ. Do we? I don't think so. It's not something that I looked up. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't going to say I'm Sonny the puppet, because I'm not Sonny the puppet. I have a persona of Sonny the puppet. So anyway, good morning. Yes, to affirm his credibility. That's why he says, is Paul an apostle. Like, he does not play games. He's just starting straight in. He says, hey, this is who is sending you this letter. Listen up. It's sort of like when Jesus says, verily, verily, I say to you, or, like that repeat word, like, hey, listen, you have reason to listen to me. And so there comes an importance when someone who is titled sends you a letter, right? Like, somebody might send you a title, or somebody might send you a letter that you might be like, I'm not going to bother reading that yet. But when it has a title attached to it, you're going to be like, oh, that's from Paul. We better pay attention. And so that's kind of what this says. And remember, back in our intro to Ephesians, Titius is the one who brings the letter to Priscilla and Aquila for the church. So tying it back to the intro where Priscilla and Aquila were the church planters with Paul, and they stayed behind and did the work of church planters, and they are receiving this letter for the whole body, and it's coming from Paul, who was, again, an apostle. He was the messenger, delegate, the one sent forth with orders specifically commissioned by Christ and not self-appointed. So they're like, okay, it's from Paul. We need to read this letter to them. And then, and going into this really quick, and in the notes, I'll have referring to the foundation of the church. This is what I'm talking about, that Paul stayed there for 3 years, but remember, Ephesus was such a large, ever-growing, changing city, like people coming and going, that the church likely would have changed in the amount of time between Paul being there and the letter coming to them. So some of them might not have known Paul personally, but they would have known of him. And so it's another reason for him to state who he is. It's another reason for him to give authority. We are in Ephesians 1. We're still in verse 1, Paul and apostle. We're covering the and apostle part at the moment. So if you received a letter from somebody and they stated their title and it was somebody who was important, you would stop and listen. So a proven, trustworthy person, a person known and researched history to bring respect for them. So they would have known, hey, this is somebody we actually need to listen to. And is very important, because if you had said a apostle, then it would have like flipped me out. Anyway. So we do hold to the theory, not theory, but the truth of the matter that Paul receives his apostleship because he had seen Jesus in person. And so that is where we're at. Okay. Now, what else does Scripture tell us about Paul? He actually tells the Galatians church something important. So we're going to look at Galatians 1:1. And so you guys listen up, because you're going to answer a question really quick. Paul, an apostle, not from men nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father who raised him from the dead. That's Galatians 1:1. So what do we know about Paul from that verse? I love the little AI summary that is like changing as I go. And this time it says, analyzing the biblical definition of apostle from Ephesians. Yes, you are right on it, AI summary. A brother directly from Christ. Yes, so he is not from men nor through men. So Saul would have been from men and through men, but Paul, after conversion, is not from men or through men. He is directly from Christ. He is saying that through Jesus Christ, who raised, and God the Father who raised him from the dead. So he literally is saying, hey, this is who I am. This is why I'm an apostle. That's okay. We're moving on. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. We do know the fivefold ministry giftings. TC covers this every now and then, and I don't know why it hid your comment right there, because you didn't say anything for it to hide. So that's really weird. Okay, so to be a fivefold ministry, one of those giftings is apostle. And so there are some not regulations, but there are some markers of who could be classified in the apostle ministry. And so let's look at those. A modern apostle would be someone who is clearly called and sent by God. So you would have more, you would have like evidence such as like blessings, like that they walk in favor, that like the doors just kind of open for them, or you are seeing God directing them. So it's a clear calling. It's clear that they have been sent by God. Okay, so yeah, a pastor of pastors. So like somebody who could unite pastors together. Somebody maybe like as we would see like a large church, like a pastor, the senior pastor with other pastors under him. But an apostle would be like more of like different pastors from different bodies coming together, bringing them together. Yes, this would be a modern apostle as a gift, not like their title, because we're not titling somebody an apostle. So if you see somebody titling themselves as an apostle, be weary of what message they send, because they don't have the right to title themselves as apostle. They can have an apostolic gifting, but watch out for those people. Okay, so another marker of modern apostle gifting is that they can plant churches, they establish ministries, and they further grow established ministries. So they can come in and help the church grow as well, and give direction. They operate in a strong spiritual authority with wisdom and humility. Humility is one of those things that if somebody today is calling themselves an apostle, then I gotta fix my puzzle piece here. Okay, if somebody today is calling themselves an apostle, watch out, because that's not humility. I'm not going to self-title. Humility is one of those important things for a leader. Demonstrates Christ-like character. Also, again, somebody who's calling themselves an apostle is not demonstrating Christ-like character, because Christ came to serve, not be served. And that, again, back to my scripture of the day. So go read that if you haven't read that. Okay. So also one other thing that we see is the modern gift of apostleship can also be considered missionaries. They tend to go to a place and establish churches. And sorry, that's my trash truck if you are hearing that. That they don't stay in the same place the whole, like for their whole ministry. They but they do plant and establish local leadership and then move on. So if you see somebody doing that, then they most likely have the gift of apostleship, apostolic gifting. And we're not talking about the apostolic church in this sense. Yes, humble themselves so that they're, yeah, because, okay, so if somebody is operating in that role of apostleship, that gifting, if they're not humble, then their heads will explode. The pride will just well up, and they'll start calling themselves apostle and so on and so forth, because you are the center of whatever this mission is going to be. So there is an importance to marking someone with apostleship giftings as humble. And if they can't be humble, then they shouldn't have, this is my opinion, but they should not be in that position. Thank you, Sarah. I love your feedback because this is very much on what I'm talking about. So if you stick around, you'll get to know what I'm talking about. So moving on to the next part of our verse. All right, we're still in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 1. Paul, an apostle. So we've covered that. And now we're going to, by the will of God. Okay, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ. That was a given. I didn't go in depth on Jesus Christ here. But Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of God. This is the portion that we're going to talk about now. So Paul did not start this apostleship on his own. Far from it. He was anti-church. He was anti-Christian. And so he was basically thrown into this. And then the Spirit of God in him, the baptism of the Spirit as well, like compels him. And again, I'm referencing 1 Corinthians 9:16. I'm gonna go back to that and read it for you, because this is the second time I've mentioned it without reading it. So Paul says, "For if I preach the gospel, I have nothing to boast of, for necessity is laid upon me. Yes, woe is me if I do not preach the gospel." Verse 17, "For if I do this willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, I have been entrusted with stewardship." 18, "What is my reward then? That when I preach the gospel, I may present the gospel of Christ without any charge, that I may not abuse my authority in the gospel." So he is stating quite clearly that he knows his mission. That, like, if you are called to something here, you better do what you're called to do. Not because you have to, but because there is reward in it. And so he's just flowing. He's flowing with the Spirit here. Like he's like, okay, whatever his hands are up, basically. Whatever you want to do with me, this is what I'll do, is basically what Paul is saying to God. And we see this. This is evident in his life. So back to my notes. On page 2 of my notes, it says, God had set Paul, let me start that over again. God had set Saul apart and used him as Paul. He was an appointed messenger of God. So we see that God is the one who appointed him from the beginning. And so when he calls himself Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ by the will of God, there's foundation. Yes, Sarah, we covered that earlier. I will have the recording on YouTube later, and so you can go back and watch all of what we talked about before. So Sarah asked, so Saul was Paul. And then you can go back and watch, and I go into depth about the story of Saul and Paul's conversion.